What's going on, everybody? My name is John. Welcome back to another video, guys. Today we're going to be breaking down the fight night between Cory Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov going down this weekend. We're going to give my full card predictions today. Guys, if you're not following me on TikTok already, go over there. It's JohnMundy_MMA. That's where I do daily live streams and daily videos. So make sure you guys go follow that account real quick. Anyways, though, we're going to get right into it with the first fight of the night, which is between Cedric Dumas and Denis Tallulah. Now, this is an exceptionally low-level bout. Cedric Dumas has wins over Abu Azaitar and Cody Brundage, which are not great wins, if we're just being honest. Denis Tallulah's only win is that win over Jamie Pickett. Obviously, you guys know Jamie Pickett for losing to Bo Nickel. He comes into this fight on a 3-fight losing streak to Jun Young Park, the Iron Turtle, Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez, and Christian Leroy Duncan. And he was finished in each and every single one of those fights. If you just look at the record, you would pick Cedric Dumas, obviously only having 2 losses compared to Denis Tallulah's 9 losses, but a lot of Tallulah's losses aren't that bad. You know, that 3-fight losing streak that I listed are all to pretty good names. He even lost to Ikram Aliskerov back in the day before the UFC, so he's not losing to low-level competition. But he's also not beating any competition, basically, other than Jamie Pickett. But I have made it a rule. I am never picking Cedric Dumas to win a fight in the UFC. I'm sorry, I don't care who it is against. I'm not picking him. Even though this is a layup matchup for him to get a win, I still have to go with Denis Tallulah. I just think his grappling is going to be better. I don't trust Cedric Dumas' grappling whatsoever, and I don't think he's very strong on the feet, so I'm going with Denis Tallulah to win this fight, guys, by a unanimous decision win. Now let's get right into the second fight of the night between Jai Herbert and Rolando Bedoya. And I think that this is a very interesting stylistic matchup because I think Jai Herbert here could be the matador, while Rolando Bedoya is going to be looking for a finish over Jai Herbert. Now, in my opinion, I think that Jai Herbert is going to win this fight, dancing and leading the charge, having Rolando Bedoya follow him around the octagon and ultimately outpointing him just like Chaos Williams did, just like Song Kenan did. You can't lose to Song Kenan in 2023, take a year off as a contender, and then still expect me to predict you against somebody that is pretty good at range like Jai Herbert. I'm only going to quickly talk about Victoria Dudakova versus Sam Hughes because I think that this is a fairly straightforward fight to predict. I'm going with Victoria Dudakova. I don't know how you could pick Sam Hughes in this fight. You know, maybe she could get it done by just being more experienced, but I think Victoria Dudakova's record is really shallow, to be honest. You know, she only has 2 wins in the UFC, but I just think she's more skilled. She's up and coming, and I think she beats Sam Hughes by decision by just outpointing her in this fight. Moving up to the next fight on the card, we have Guram Kutateladze versus Jordan Vucinic. Now, this is a great fight that I'm also very sad about because Jordan Vucinic is taking this fight on very short notice against Guram Kutateladze. Everybody knows how highly rated and touted Guram is, and he's stepping in here on short notice, and I just don't like that because Jordan Vucinic, it would be a great prospect if he wasn't taking this fight against Guram on short notice. And I think it's going to be one of those things where he bounces back in the future, but people still come back to this loss and go, see, he's not that good. He lost to Guram. Now, obviously, Guram is coming off of that loss to Elvis Brenner, who stepped in on short notice, in which he kind of was winning the entire fight until he got broken later on in the fight. I think Guram's going to win it, man. I just think Guram's going to be too sharp, too clean, and I think he's going to win a decision here. Moving on to the next fight on the card, we have Shamil Gaziev versus Don'Tale Mayes. Now, people are going to laugh at me for this take, but I think Shamil Gaziev is not that bad of a prospect. I think he just lost to Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He was moved up the rankings too quickly. It's sort of like the Ikram Aliskerov versus Robert Whittaker thing. I don't think that truly represents Shamil Gaziev, and also he went deep into that fight, which shows me he can win this fight against Don'Tale Mayes, and I believe that's what he's going to do. He's going to put a pace on Don'Tale Mayes and beat him, and honestly, I don't think that the loss is that bad to Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and he's also beaten a guy like Martin Buday, who's really not that bad. So I have Shamil Gaziev winning this fight. I just don't really rate Don'Tale Mayes whatsoever. So yeah, I'm going with Shamil Gaziev to win this fight. Now on to the next fight on the card. We have Muhammad Yahya versus Cal Fernandez. Now this fight, I'm going with Fernandez to win this fight and get it done. I think Muhammad Yahya was literally brought in for UFC 294 so they would have a spot to fill in Abu Dhabi, right? And he lost to Trevor Peek, which I don't really rate that highly. I think Cal Fernandez, that loss to Mark Diakise is completely acceptable, and I'm going with him to win this fight. I just think he outpoints Muhammad Yahya. I don't think he gets a finish on Yahya. Yahya is tough, but I think he wins this fight and kind of styles on him. Now, this is a fight that really confuses me because a lot of people are predicting against Azamat Murzakanov in this fight against Alonzo Minifield, and I think that's crazy, okay? I know Azamat Murzakanov might not be tested against the upper echelon of the division, but he still has wins over guys like Tafon and Chukwi, Dustin Jacoby, and I think he's going to come out here and I think he's going to beat Alonzo Minifield, who pretty much wilts against anybody that's in that upper echelon of the division. Not saying that Azamat Murzakanov is upper echelon, but I just think he does enough to get past Alonzo Minifield in their bout on Saturday. I just don't think Minifield has it. Now, this next fight I'm extremely excited for, and that is Joel Alvarez versus Elvis Brenner. Now, obviously, everybody knows Elvis Brenner because of what he did to Guram Kutateladze, finishing him in the 3rd round. But I really want to say he was losing a majority of that fight. And like we saw with Maitibek Orabai, I don't think that when a guy doesn't wilt against Elvis Brenner, he wins a lot, to be honest. I think that Elvis Brenner loses a fight against a tough opponent, and that's exactly what I think that Joel Alvarez is. And I think that Joel Alvarez is going to be able to outbox Elvis Brenner at most points throughout the fight. So I'm going with Joel Alvarez to win this fight, and I think he's moving on to become a very exciting and intriguing prospect. This next prediction is going to go by very quickly as well because I am going with Lupi Godinez. I just don't see what the managers of Mackenzie Dern are doing or what the matchmakers are doing with Mackenzie Dern. This is a loss. I don't know why they're pairing her up with a fighter that can box like Lupita Godinez can box, a girl that is really active and is always in there. And listen, guys, Mackenzie Dern couldn't out-grapple Amanda Lemos, who has literally no ground game. And Lupi lost to Verna Jandiroba, who's probably fighting for the title next, and just beat Amanda Lemos. So I'm going with Lupi Godinez by winning this fight with boxing. It's that simple. I don't think that Mackenzie Dern can strike with her, and I think she gets it done very, very easily. Now we move on to one of the most anticipated bouts of the card, and that is Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chiesa. We all know the struggles that Tony Ferguson has been on recently with his 7-fight losing streak. Now, Michael Chiesa is not too much better with a 3-fight losing streak, but I think that Michael Chiesa breaks his streak this weekend because I think he's going to be too big and too strong for Tony Ferguson. It has just felt like on this losing streak that Tony Ferguson is mostly lacking physicality, right? He can get in there and he can strike with guys. He just doesn't have his physicality that he once did. He just doesn't seem that strong. And I think that Michael Chiesa is going to be out grappling him throughout the fight. Now, if Tony does get up and Michael Chiesa gasses, let's say like the 2nd round, Michael Chiesa gasses, he is cooked. Okay, Tony Ferguson is going to beat him if Michael Chiesa gasses and can't grapple with him anymore and is forced to strike with him. I don't think that matters. I think that Tony Ferguson is going to lose. I think he's going to get out grappled and Michael Chiesa is going to win by decision. Now to another super great fight between Marlon Chito Vera and Deiveson Figueiredo. Now, Deiveson Figueiredo is obviously a flyweight at heart, right? He used to be the 125-pound champion. He is now up at bantamweight at 135 pounds, but he's looked great in his last 2 fights. I think the weight cut has been very good for his chin, you know? He doesn't have to cut all that weight down to 125 again. And I honestly, man, Marlon Chito Vera has not been impressing me recently. This stretch that he's been on, he basically loses until he wins for most fights, obviously that is, but he also gets out-grappled in pretty much every fight that he's in, and I think that Figgy is going to be able to exploit that. I think he's super physical at bantamweight, he's super strong, and he's going to be able to out-grapple Marlon Chito Vera for 3 rounds and win a decision. But if anybody does get knocked out, it is going to be Figgy. He's not knocking out Chito. Everybody knows Chito's chin is crazy. He ate so many shots in the Sean O'Malley fight, but I think that Figgy gets it done with his grappling. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening between Sharabullet Magomedov and Mikhail Olachechuk. Now, this fight is very exciting for a multitude of reasons. Sharabullet obviously is coming off of that win at UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia, while Mikhail Olachechuk lost his last bout to Kevin Holland, but also he made it interesting dropping Kevin Holland in the 1st round. So this is a good fight between 2 very good fighters. I think Sharabullet's winning, though. The guy's got plot armor. I don't think he's losing his win streak in this fight, right? I think that if you look back at Shara's last fight, it went very deep into the 3rd round until he ultimately stopped Mackenzie Dern's boyfriend. But mostly that was because he wasn't throwing anything back at Sharabullet, right? And so I think that Mikhail Olachechuk is going to exchange with Sharabullet, which is going to leave him open more. And I think in the 1st round, Shara is going to be so fast. I see Shara winning this fight. I don't think that Mikhail Olachechuk is going to be able to out-grapple him. We saw Shara's wrestling improvements in the last fight, you know, against Mackenzie Dern's boyfriend. You know, he was grappling much better in that fight than he was in his first fight in the UFC. So I think that he's going to win. I do. I think Sharabullet wins this fight and gets another win in the UFC. Now to the highly anticipated main event between Cory Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov. This is a huge step up for Umar, man. He's never fought anybody like Cory Sandhagen, who is that fast, that experienced. But I will say he is going to have the strength edge in this fight. I don't think that Cory Sandhagen is that physically strong. I've seen guys really that aren't on his level push him really hard, right? And if you look at some of the fights that Cory's had, he has a tendency to leave them close at times, right? He doesn't always just school his opponents. A lot of the time they are close. And I think that that could be a detriment going into this Umar fight, right? Because Cory doesn't really finish guys all that much, right? Most of the time he's going to a decision, he's using his output and winning a fight. So in that way, I do think that Umar is much more physically strong and probably more of a threat in terms of his grappling, and his striking is probably much more powerful, although his striking is not as good as Cory's. So I am going with Cory to outpoint Umar here, but I do think it is going to be close, and I just think that Cory edges it slightly over Umar. Okay, I think that this is going to be a little bit too much of a step up this early for Umar, and I think that Cory's going to win, but only slightly. I think Umar's a lot better than people act like. I don't think he's going to get totally fraud checked in this fight, but I do see Cory winning. Guys, thank you guys so much for watching the video today. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like on the video. I will see you guys all very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching.